Hey guys, so let's talk about this. There is a chance that Robert Kennedy Jr. will be head of the NIH, the National Institute of Health. I believe that's it. And well, the thing we should talk about is he is a believer in the idea that there is a connection between vaccines and autism. I think he just thinks vaccines in general, but I know he's been critical of specifically the MMR vaccine. This is mumps, measles, rubella. This is a pretty commonly held idea. I don't know where it comes from. I can tell you who is probably most responsible for propagating this misinformation. It is a guy named Andrew Wakefield, who was a British gastroenterologist. So his specialty is the stomach. He's not even pediatrics or a neuroscientist or a psychiatrist. He was a stomach doctor. And he published his paper in 1988 in I think it's the Lancet, which is I believe, a medical journal. Now, here's the thing. I am not a medical doctor. I do have a PhD in mathematics. So I will use a little bit of that in this conversation. I am also someone who is apparently, through assessment, autistic. Now, I'll say apparently for a reason. So all I say about his paper is that it really doesn't take a specialist to see problems with his results right away. I read the paper years ago. I think it has a sample size of about 16. I could have looked it up. I didn't want to look it up because even if he had a sample size of 25, 50, or even 100 people, that's nowhere close of an adequate sample size. All right, it's not. So we can just throw out his research, but I kind of want to address this other thing. Two things. Why is there some type of correlation between not causation, correlation between vaccines and the increased rates of autism or the development of autism? And I'm going to say, actually, yes, there is a correlation, just like there is a correlation between the consumption of ice cream and people drowning. They just both happen to happen during the summer in greater numbers. So one thing about it is that the age when children will start getting vaccines kind of corresponds with the time when children will first start showing signs of autism, because autism it's a developmental disorder and it affects how you interact with the world. So, for example, babies not making eye contact, not reaching certain milestones in development. You will notice this. You can notice this about the same time when people start getting their vaccines. It's just a coincidence, I guess. Not a coincidence, but there's correlation, not causation. The other thing is that over the past decades, more and more people are getting various vaccines, MMR, hepatitis, COVID, HPV, right? And more people are being diagnosed with autism. Well, here's the thing with that. Well, we're getting more vaccines because that's advancement. When I was a kid, there was not a chickenpox vaccine. There is one now. That's an advancement. If there was one, and there may have been one, but it wasn't widely available. I'm not sure if there was one or not. And I actually had health complications because of chickenpox. That's an advancement. But we're not only making advancements in vaccines, we're also making advancements in autism research. So the thing is, a lot of people who would have never been diagnosed, myself included, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, they would have just been labeled as quirky or strange or odd or whatever adjective you want to use. And if you were like me, you had the ability to kind of figure out when you act this way, people respond like this. And when you act this way, people respond to you better. So you learn to cover up certain traits. You learn to blend in. My way of blending in was often not saying anything, was being kind of quiet in situations, not speaking up, not stepping on toes. So what we're able to do is we're able to catch it earlier. We've expanded the definition. For example, the diagnosis of Asperger's is no longer a diagnosis. It now falls under autism. There. So the definition has gotten broader, and we've gotten better at catching it and seeing it, because that's advancements in science. And the reason this is a good thing is because from the standpoint of educators and mental health workers, we can make accommodations for people. We can make the lives of those people who are kind of strange or different a little bit more bearable. Because for me, it was a matter of making the accommodations myself. It was a matter of getting up and leaving the party after 15, 20 minutes to step outside because the noise and all the motion was overwhelming. It was having my strange little routines and people just kind of letting me have my routines. It was eating foods that the rest of my family wasn't necessarily, or they weren't eating. And I was lucky in that regard. But now we can do this in a broader way. So that's what's contributing to a lot of the increasing diagnosis of autism. The question I think should be asked is, yes, we have more and more people being diagnosed with autism, but how many of those people being diagnosed have learning difficulties? And if I had to guess, I would say that the number of people who are being diagnosed with autism that have learning difficulties or fall under the category of what would be called level 2 or level 3, that number probably hasn't gone up, because those people were always being observed. It's the people, I would suspect, who are level 1, what's called level 1, what used to be called, for the most part, Asperger's, are probably the ones that are being diagnosed in greater numbers now. And another advancement that we're making is that we can actually go back and say, hey, we evaluated you, we assessed you, and this is what happened to me. We evaluated, we assessed you. How did you go 40 plus years without being noticed? And now they can actually test for masking. They can say, guess what? One of the reasons you flew under the radar is because you were really good at masking. We really shouldn't have RFK Jr. I don't even know if it's RFK Jr. He should not be in charge of anything except maybe something with environmental policy. But everything else, man, please, good Lord, let's keep him away from any type of health policy. Raw milk, guys. He drinks milk that hasn't been pasteurized. Raw milk.